Ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy Mega Meeple.
Greetings and welcome to the Mega Meeple, this show all about gamers and the games that bring them together. This is episode 55, and a little late getting this one out. I took a day off. What are you gonna do? So I took all day Saturday, and I did a little triple play of movies. I went to see Solo, and then Deadpool 2, and then Avengers, and then just a bunch of other things going on here at the homestead. And plus, too, I wanted to wait until the new Dice Tower board game breakfast video came out. That's actually coming out a day late. It's coming out Tuesday. But because one of the topic I'm going to talk about today is the same topic that I'm talking about on that video. So if you want to check that out, you can just go to the Dice Tower YouTube channel and for this week and check that out. But first, I want to talk about another thing that sort of delayed the time of actually recording and editing this episode. Was this past week went to one of the few times I'm able to actually get out and make some gaming events. I went to there's a local gaming event here in the Charlotte area called Potions and Pixels. It's basically a hybrid of board gaming and video gaming that is held at various locations throughout the Queen City. And I was finally able to make it to this past month's event. I met with Michael, who is the facilitator and administrator for that event. So we talked. I reached out to him a while back, but was finally able to put a face to the name, and we talked a bit. And we're going to be looking into having him on the show in an upcoming episode, just to talk about not only Potions and Pixels, but basically just the whole social interaction and the connection that that whole role model is based on, and something that I'm a big advocate here on the show. And while I was there, I met a local game designer, Logan Meyer, and he was actually there with his game Clockwork Marauders, and doing some play testing with some players there, getting some feedback. And so I touched base with him, and we're looking into actually got him on the calendar here pretty soon to come into the Mega Meeple studio and basically talk about the game, and may do some filming and recording of a how-to video that we'll be posting. But anyway, that game, be looking for it. It should be coming out on Kickstarter here in the next 2 or 3 months or so. So keep an eye on that. Called Clockwork Marauders. And this past week, got a pleasant surprise. I mean, I knew that the expansions to Zombicide Green Horde was going to be sent out, but as one usually does, you always try to check to find out whether you got the tracking number, or if there's a tracking number generated through either FedEx or UPS. And nothing, no emails or notifications were coming to me. So I thought, okay, well, I knew they said they were coming out this past week. So I was like, well, just be patient. Well, it was, what was it, Tuesday or Wednesday this past week. A big box showed up on my doorstep. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that I wasn't expecting that. I didn't receive the email. In fact, I didn't receive any tracking info until maybe like 3 or 4 days after I received the package. So I guess with Kickstarter, or particularly CMON, that tends to be a thing where sometimes you get the package even before you get the tracking number. And then a few days later, okay, now you get the email. It's like, oh, yeah, it's been delivered. Yeah, no crap. I guess that's what that big box on my doorstep has been sitting there for all that time. But anyway, it filmed, of course, when you get a new game, what do? You film an unboxing video. So I'm in a process now of editing that together with the unboxing video of the Zombicide Green Horde box that I got maybe like 2 or so months ago. And I'm just going to put that all in one video. So look for that on our YouTube channel coming up soon as I get that edited together. And then this past week, the final Scythe expansion has been announced, The Rise of Fenris. You can go to Stonemaier Games and pre-order that game at their website, or you can even pre-order it for those of you going to be at Gen Con. You can pre-order the game and pick it up there at the con. Another thing you can do is pre-order it through Miniature Market. It's going to be on a limited base. I mean, they're taking pre-orders, I think, until June 15th or so. So if you want to get that, be one of the first ones to get that expansion, don't hesitate to go over to either Stonemaier Games website or Miniature Market and make sure to get your copy. It is going to be available in retail in August. So if you just want to wait until then, that's cool too. But yeah, this is going to be the final expansion to the Scythe universe. In fact, at the time of this recording, I just finished recording an interview with Jamie, talking about The Rise of Fenris, as well as My Little Scythe and a few other things that we discussed. And also recorded about a month or so ago an interview with Hobie, just created the game My Little Scythe along with his daughter. And so we'll be doing an upcoming episode with the interview with both Jamie and Hobie. So I'll be looking forward to that. Certainly going to get that out. It's going to be an episode, not sure when, but it will certainly be before Gen Con, so you could hear all the information on that. I think they're just going to be showcasing it and demoing it at Gen Con. So you can at least be able to see it in action at Gen Con, but I think it will be available to purchase via retail at the same time that Rise of Fenris comes out in retail. Well, this past week was finally able to get some people together to play some games, all these new Kickstarters that I've been receiving here recently. But we were only able to get the game Glyph to the table and play that. And give you basically a first impression review of the game in this episode. And it actually ties into my little topic / rant, not really a rant, but just a topic of this episode I'll be talking about later. But yeah, when I saw the Kickstarter, it all, for all intents and purposes, it looked like a game that I really would enjoy. It had some aspects of it that I think I would enjoy. And when I got the game, yeah, the components are beautiful. The artwork is great. The dice are fantastic. But when we started playing it, I don't know. It was just I think the combination of subpar rulebook and just some of the mechanics in the game. It was just it just wasn't flowing very well. It seemed to be pretty clunky. And so I don't know if it's a sense of, well, I just need to go back and reread the rule book another dozen times or so, try to get through what it's all trying to say. Maybe try with a different group. I don't know, but my first impression review of the game, even though the components were beautiful and well done, just the actual mechanics of the gameplay, it seemed like it really it was really chugging along, and it was having to put forth quite a few of effort of even being something that was playable. Basically, we felt like we were almost beta testing the game. So yeah, I don't know. I was excited about the game, but after at least playing it through, at least for the first time, my first impressions of it was a bit of a sense of dejection settled in. When I encounter games like that, it's one of those things where I just put it on the shelf, wait on it, let the bitter taste go away from my mouth, try to revisit it at a later time, maybe with a different group of people, or maybe with hopefully between now and then there'll be more FAQ, or actually I don't think there's even an FAQ for this game to begin with. Maybe there would be an FAQ release for the game to kind of address some of the clunkiness, the issues with the game, at least from what we've experienced with our first play. In fact, it got to the point where I don't think we even finished the game. It was one of those things like, you know what? What do you think? Because we were discussing about, okay, what do you think of the game? What kind of things, is it working, not working? And it just got to the point where it's like, you know what? We're almost just ready to just pack this game up and play something else. That's always not a good feeling when you've gotten a game that you thought you were going to enjoy, and when you finally got it to the table, it just didn't work out. But like I said, we might revisit it again later on, and I don't know, maybe my final review of the game would either change or actually maybe be even reinforced from my first impressions of it. But anyway, yeah, for those of you who've gotten the Glyph Kickstarter and played it through, yeah, let me know what you think about it. Is your experience different from mine? If it wasn't too different from mine, what did you do to help the game along, or help improve or enhance the game? And actually, that's going to go into my topic for this episode. It's basically house ruling games. Every single hour in FLGS, a gamer plays a new game. Out of the 98,000 games on BGG, only a few are given the playtime they deserve. For tens of thousands of games, the joy of being played by happy gamers everywhere is something that they will never know. Will you be an angel for one of these lost games? Every day, innocent games are ignored, unplayed, and left to die on the shelf of shame. And they are crying out for help. Please go to our Pod Pledge page and support the Mega Meeple with a monthly gift right now. For just $5 a month, only 17 cents a day, you'll help rescue a game from the dust bunnies. You'll provide card sleeving, miniature paints, dice rolling, and baggies. Go now and pledge to the Mega Meeple, and you'll receive numerous rewards, including shoutouts, as well as exclusive content and merch. A game can be given a second chance at life, thanks to you. Right now, there is a lonely game that desperately needs you. Your donation says, I care. And I'm here to help. Please donate right now. Links are found on the show notes of this episode and on the Mega Meeple website. So I talked briefly, just piggybacking on my first impression review of Glyph by Kazoodoo Games. And it's also this week this is my topic of my video contribution to the Dice Tower Board Game Breakfast for this week. Is just basically house rules. Sometimes you get a game and it doesn't necessarily even have to be a bad game. Maybe it's just there's a mechanic or rule or something about the game that's like, I could do better, and you make a house rule for it. But when you get a game that doesn't quite really click with you, either the rule book or the mechanics or the something about the gameplay that's just so clunky and filled with kind of obstacles that you have to make some house rules. In a sense, you're like I said, you're basically kind of beta testing the game that's supposed to be an actual finished product. In a sense, you're almost having to either rewrite the rules, which is what we started doing with Glyph, but just basically kind of rewrite the rules or just kind of redesign the game from scratch. It's like, okay, well, using these components, what kind of game would I come up with? I mean, to hell with what the game is all about. It's like, okay, well, if I were just given all these components and these characters, and be told, okay, come up with a game using these things, what would I come up with? And just, basically kind of designing a whole new game from that. How much does a game have to be subpar that you have to do all these house rules just to make it playable or enjoyable? In the game, do you have to do that until you just throw up your hands and say, you know what? Either this game is broken or this game is one of those things where it's just not for me, or it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And it's like, okay, well, it may be a good game to somebody. It's just not a good game for me. And hell, that's where eBay or the Board Game Geek marketplace comes into play. I was like, all right, well, hopefully you kind of recoup your cost from the price of the Kickstarter or whatever amount of money that you invested to get it. Yeah, have you ever played a game where you had to house rule it to death just to get it to play, or you just basically had to redesign the game from scratch? And at what point of house ruling something do you just say, you know what, this is not going to work, and just call it quits? My guest this episode is Chad DeShon, and he has a successful Kickstarter game that's wrapping up this week called On Tour. It's a roll and write game, and so he's going to be talking about that. So let's go to that interview right now. All right, welcome back to the Mega Meeple. And as is our typical thing on our podcast is we interview a lot of cool people in the gaming design and industry, and we have another successful Kickstarter. Big surprise. This time we are talking to Chad DeShon with the game currently on Kickstarter called On Tour. How you doing, Chad?
I'm doing good. This is going to be fun.
Looking forward to it. Well, first of all, just congratulations on a successful Kickstarter. So this game is going to see the light of day, as they say. So to start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into gaming and all that kind of happy stuff.
Sure. I'd say my story is pretty typical. We played games a lot when I was a kid. Played a lot of Monopoly, Canasta. I mean, I remember sitting on the living room floor playing Monopoly when I was really little. And so I was, always playing a lot of games. And then when I got into college, we discovered Settlers of Catan. And, I don't think we ever played just once in a night if we played. And so, I just wore out my copy of Settlers. And then later after college, I kind of branched out into the bigger world of hobby board games. And, the collection's just grown and grown since then.
Yes, as they often do. Have you ever gotten to the point where it's like, I got to start like selling some of this stuff just to make room for the other stuff coming in that you want?
I'm a pretty aggressive seller. I try to make sure that everything on my shelf, if I have people over, that I'm excited to play every single game they can pick.
Definitely, yeah. That's. I have I think I saw it on Facebook or something like that, where it's like somebody made like a restaurant menu of his board game collection. So when he had people over, just kind of, well, what do you want to play? Oh, I don't know. So he'd give his friends this restaurant style menu of all his games, and they kind of ordered what they wanted to play.
That's a great idea.
So, but so you have a game called On Tour. Now it's a roll and write board game. Now this to me. This is kind of a new thing. I don't know how if I've just been living under a rock or something like that, but I'm fairly new to the board gaming thing, and so I've just recently heard of this roll and write style board game. So it's for those of us, mainly me, that's not sure what a roll and write board game is. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. I think roll and write's probably the old one that most of us can think of as Yahtzee, where on your turn you roll some dice and then you have a score sheet, and you, depending on what you roll and re-roll, you mark off different sections or write numbers in different boxes.
All right.
And then I think the modern version of roll and writes is kind of really took off with Quicks, and now Quicks Deluxe is in Target and everywhere, and that kind of got everyone kind of into this genre, I think, of, basically the whole idea is defined by you roll some dice and then either you or everybody at the table, depending on what those dice rolls are, mark something with either a pencil on paper or dry erase on dry erase board. Okay.
Yeah. I remember way back then playing things like Yahtzee, and that's sort of like, mm-hmm. That's been in my childhood, my exposure to board games, and then I just went on to video games from there.
But, sure.
But
yeah, Yahtzee is kind of like the Monopoly of the roll and write world, I would say. All
right. So tell us about On Tour. How did I call this my barroom napkin question? As many good ideas start out with just scrolling on a napkin. How did On Tour come to be?
Sure. I think like a lot of board gamers, I've dabbled in design over the years, and I've made a few have gotten to the point where I play tested with a group of my friends, and then it turned out they just weren't any fun at all. But On Tour was different. The first prototype, we were like, yeah, this is not a game yet, but there's something here. I basically started I play a lot of train games. I play a lot of Age of Steam, a lot of games with route building. And so I really kind of like that route building mechanic. And On Tour is basically just a giant route that you're trying to build across the country to visit as many states as possible. But I was thinking, how can I do something quicker and easier to learn? Because I like games that are easier to learn. I like games where I can sit down and, 2 minutes explanation and we're in the game. And so that was kind of the goal, is to take the route building mechanic that I like from these 2-hour plus games and try to make a 20-minute easy to learn game that still has some of that same feel. Now,
this is also a good party game and a good solo game as well. It's 1 to 4 players, but it if you get extras, you could play up to like a dozen or so people.
Yep. So On Tour has this mechanic where everybody has their own map of the United States, where you're trying to build the best route you can. But there's some cards that are flipped and some dice that are rolled to the middle of the table, and every turn, everyone's going to use the same 3 cards and the same 2 dice to mark on their map and to plan their route. So everyone's getting the same inputs, and everyone's doing the thing at the same time, and it's just what you choose to do that separates you from the other players. It works in a similar way of Karuba, if you've played that, where everyone's taking their turn at the same time.
Okay.
So if you're playing by yourself or if you're playing with a dozen or more people, it's going to take about the same amount of time to play because everyone's working at the same time.
All righty. So tell us about the victory conditions and just the mechanics on how the game plays out.
Sure. So basically, you're looking at a map of the United States, and you want to visit as many of these states as possible. You're taking your band on a 100-day tour of the U.S. And so every turn, there's going to be 2 dice, and they're D10s. And we combine those 2 numbers that are rolled. Like if it's a 2 or a 7, we're going to make 2 two-digit numbers out of that. So a 2 and a 7 will make a 27, and it'll make a 72. So on your turn, you're going to have to write, and everybody at the table will write a 27 in one of their states and a 72 in one of their states. And then at the end of the game, you're going to try to draw this bigger route as possible across the U.S., but you could only go to the same number or a bigger number as you're traveling. So you're trying to put these numbers in order on your map so that you can snake a big route across. Now, it'd be a little too easy if we just let you write the numbers anywhere you want. So there's also 3 cards that are flipped up, and the cards tell you where you can write your number. So a card might say you can write a number in the north, or you can write a number in the east, or something to that effect to make it a little more challenging. So you can't just make your route go over wherever you want. You've got to kind of snake around and get kind of creative.
If you want to play more than 4 players, how does that work as far as getting more things?
So, yes, exactly what you're saying. The base game comes with 4 player boards, and the only thing you need more to add more players is another dry erase marker and another player board. And so we're selling a marker and a board for $3, and you just decide how many more players you want to add. If you want to make it a 6-player game, add 2 more. Up to 12 of those will fit in the box. And so we do have a pledge level that says, yeah, just go ahead and fill my box up. Give me 12 boards and 12 markers. But you could even go higher than that. We've talked to some people who plan on using it in the classroom. So they're probably going to get 30 player boards or something like that.
Okay, great. Yeah, so when you have if you have a massive party or maybe even like a convention type thing, you could have a whole bunch of people sitting at the table, and really
sure.
There's no
like
limit.
We'll have a game weekend sometimes where we have like 20 people on a house playing games, right? And you don't want to play 20-player games all weekend, but it's nice to have something you can pull out so that once during the day everyone can be in the same game.
That's cool. Now, based on just to timestamp this episode, the Kickstarter is going towards until looks like June 14th, 2018. So now,
and it'll actually be, depending on your time zone, it'll be ends the night of the 13th.
Okay. All right. So for people listening to this months or possibly even years down the road, if you haven't Kickstarted it, if you're listening to this after June 14th, 15th, you missed it. So, but now is for people who may have missed the Kickstarter, if they're listening to this after the fact, is this game going to retail, or will there be like a late pledge type of thing?
It's still a little up in the air. I don't have big plans to take this retail because we have kind of maxed out the components, and I don't know that games like this where we've really gone deluxe with the components work as well in retail. But just Google On Tour Kickstarter, and whatever we're doing there'll be a link up at the top for more information or buy now or anything like that. But if you are listening before June 13th, the only way I can promise you'll get one is jump on the Kickstarter.
Right. I mean, in the world of board games, where it's like a good $50, $60. I mean, it's not a really component heavy game, so the price point is very manageable. It's like what $25.
Yeah, $24. That is a nice thing about roll and write games. You don't have to have as many cubes and little pieces that kind of drive the price up.
Right. So, and then just add as many play mats as you want, I guess, for the amount of friends that you have coming over, or how many people you want to play the game.
Sure.
So now, if people want to find out more about you or the game, or if you have like a Facebook or anything, where can they go?
Sure. Follow us on Twitter. We're at BG Tables. You can find us on Facebook. Look for BoardGameTables.com, or Google Board Game Tables, or Google On Tour Kickstarter, and we'll be up at the top.
Okay, excellent. And of course, we'll have the links to all those things in the show notes to this episode. And well, Chad, thank you so much for being with us. And again, congratulations on a successful Kickstarter.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. And stay tuned next week, as our guest is Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise. If you haven't already, go to our iTunes and subscribe. And while you're there, put out some of that 5-star loving and give us a good review. It really helps out. And also visit the website. You can follow us on any of our social media pages. That's listed there. Again, the website is www.themegameeple.com. That's all one word, themegameeple.com. And if you really like the show, you can support us via our Pod Pledge. Even just something that is as small as $5 a month really helps out with the hosting cost and so forth, the logistics of just keeping the show putting out there. But if you're not able to support us financially, at the very least, there are plenty of other ways to support us, and that's just basically spreading the word. Tell all your friends in your gaming circles about the show. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us again next week. Until then, this is Tom saying, we'll see you at the gaming table.